Hello everyone, and welcome to the fourth and final video about this lot of 100 plus patterns I purchased through Facebook. This lot that I purchased from them was actually broken up into 4 separate lots, of which I bought all of, that were sorted by brand. I've already shared the patterns by Advance and Butterick and Simplicity and Vogue in previous installments, but in this fourth and final installment we're going through the largest lot, which consists of several dozen patterns by McCalls. There's a great range of periods in here with patterns from the 1940s all the way to the 1960s, and pretty much all of the designs are beautiful and they're in rare larger sizes and in fantastic factory folded condition. McCalls is one of my favorite brands, and I'm not just saying that because I have a pattern partnership with them. I feel like they have some of the nicest, most interesting illustrations of all vintage pattern brands, and they're some of my favorite vintage patterns to follow. So I really enjoyed going through this lot, and I hope you enjoy going through it with me as well. As with my previous installments in this little series, I will have the date and time that these will all be listed on Etsy in the description box down below, as well as at the end of this video, along with a link to my Instagram where I share shop previews, and a link to my Etsy where you can actually purchase these patterns. So check that out if you're interested, and keep on watching to see all of these pretties and my reaction to how pretty they all are. So I have no idea if this is going to be the first or the last video that you see about these patterns, but this is one of the 4 lots I bought from a specific seller. This was the largest lot, and it consists entirely of McCalls patterns going from the 1940s into the 1960s, though it does seem to be, I'd say like 40% 40s, 40% 50s, with only a few 1960s patterns mixed in. Again, these are all larger sizes. I think they range from size 18 to 44, so there are a lot of kind of 38-inch, 40-inch, 42-inch bust sizes in here, which is always fantastic to see. So I'm really excited to go through these in a little bit more detail with all of you, and then I can get them organized and get them ready to be counted, and after they're counted they can be photographed, and then they can be listed, and then they can be in your hands and in your homes and hopefully in your wardrobe. So I'm sorry if my lighting is a little bit darker here. I do have it turned down a bit because a lot of the McCalls envelopes are shiny. So this is a matte envelope, so there's no sheen on it even though I have a pretty bright light on it, but this envelope is shiny. It's got kind of a glaze thing going on, so if I overexpose it you're not going to be able to see any of the details, and that's probably also why you'll see me tilt the patterns like this in the video. So I'm sorry if that's annoying. It's just so you can see the details and they don't get disrupted by my light. But right here we have McCalls 7114. It is a ladies and misses dress pattern with a button front that has scallop details, and there's a scalloped lapel and then gathers over the shoulder. It's from the 1940s, probably the later 1940s based on the length, and it is in a size 42 for a 44-inch bust, which is a fantastic size. Honestly, might keep for myself. I think this is so cute. It's in a size 20 for a 38-inch bust. You have an inverted box pleat at the front, and then it's got a basque waist and raglan sleeves and a sweetheart neckline. And there's just something very vintage Disney princess about this that I'm really into. I feel like I could do something Cinderella inspired out of this and it would just be stunning. So that might go into my personal collection, and it feels like it could be factory folded, or probably it's factory folded. I would even go so far as to say. This one feels like it's been used. This is a size 42 for a 42-inch bust, a later 1940s style pattern. It's a really cool design. I'll zoom you in a little bit more. So you've got this long fitted jacket with these button and pleat details. You've got gathers above and below the bust to shape it, and then a nice lightly flared skirt. This is another one in a size 42 from the 1940s, later 1940s I'd guess, based on the longer hemline and the hairstyles. It's a really nice classic kind of cap sleeve dolman sleeve dress, and that just means that the sleeves are cut in one with the bodice instead of there being an arm side the sleeve is set into, and it's got a little lapel that turns out nicely. I really like this pattern. It's slightly too large for me, otherwise I'd probably keep it for myself because it just is such a nice casual wear it around the house or out on the town type of dress. This is another one that I might end up keeping for myself. I just think it's really cute. It's a dress that buttons all the way up the front. It's got seams that go from the shoulder to the hem, which tends to be really flattering. You can also cinch these dresses in really easily using a belt. And this one has a little Peter Pan style collar, and you can make it with short or elbow length sleeves. I just love dresses that button all the way down the front because they're so convenient to get into. You don't need any help. You don't have to worry about a zipper splitting or getting stuck in a dress because it's got a really inconvenient side zip. There's just something very convenient and trustworthy about a button front dress, so I really like that one. It's a size 20 for a 38-inch bust, and it's number 9932. Here's another McCalls pattern in a size 20 for a 38-inch bust. This is a fitted dress with some drape details at the front, and you can make it with short or long sleeves, and it's got kind of a wing collar and cuff detail going on. This is a very classic early 1950s design in a size 20 for a 38-inch bust. Again, it buttons all the way down the front, and you can make this with short sleeves or with bishop sleeves. It also has the option to hide the button closures with a placket. This is a very different scale and style of illustration. It seems very, very small by comparison, which is kind of weird, but it looks to be in good shape. This is size 20 for a 38-inch bust. This has a hidden button closure down the front, hidden with a placket, and a notched V-neck collar. And the skirt is lightly gathered with some pockets on the side. This is a fun dress. It feels like it might be factory folded in there. It's from the 1950s and has this really dramatic asymmetrical button closure on one side, and then the bodice actually pleats over the arm side, which is interesting to see. And it's also got this kind of pleated detail going on at the front with how the fabric is overlapped. Really, really cool. Definitely not something that I'm tempted to keep or wear for myself, but I always like seeing unique designs, and I definitely consider this to be one. This is a 1940s pattern in a size 42 for a 42-inch bust. It is number 7297. It's just a two-piece suit with a very drapey peplum detail. No lapel, probably pretty easy to construct, and probably a great choice if you are a bustier person because it'd be really easy to sneak some extra room in given the gathers and the tucks at the waist. And then of course you just have a lightly flared skirt pattern. This is another one I'm kind of tempted to keep for myself. It's very reflective, as you can see, because the envelope's in great shape. It's a 1950s button-down dress. You've got darts shaping the bust, and those darts actually extend into the skirt panel, which extends into a pocket. And it buttons all the way down the front, so you don't have to fiddle with zippers. And it's got this little tab detail at the neckline, and then that's mimicked around the cuffs of the sleeves as well. Here's one that is definitely not factory folded, which is a shame because it's such a cool design. The size information is also missing, but we might be able to pull out a piece here, and it might be printed on the tissue. So let's see. I think it's probably a size 42, given that that was the size of a lot of these patterns from the 1940s. And I was right. I don't know if you can tell, but that is 42 backwards because it's the back side of the tissue. So this is in a size 42, which is awesome. You don't usually see this unique of designs in the larger sizes. So you've got this draped swag detail over one hip, and then you've got this asymmetrical gathered detail going across the waist up to the shoulder as well. Really, really cool, stunning design, one I'd be very tempted to keep for myself if it was in my size, but it's just a little bit big for me. But really, really neat design. Looks pretty complicated to put together, and it has 17 pieces, so that is a lot, but I really hope they're all in there so someone else can make this dress reality. Another 1940s pattern in a size 42. Again, we've got a very similar kind of two-piece suit set. I think this lady liked those. She also seemed to like peplums because we have another one of those here. And this one is shaped with tucks over the shoulders instead of gathers. Also, these patterns came to me from Utah, and they're actually stamped with a store in Salt Lake City, Utah. So it looks like they didn't stray far from home up until this week when I purchased them. This is another button-down dress from the 1950s. Feels like it could be factory folded. It's got an interesting notch detail on the collar, which is mimicked on the pockets and the cuffs, and it is number 9499 in a size 20 for a 38-inch bust. This one feels factory folded as well, though it clearly has some water damage along this bottom edge. Hopefully it's still in decent enough shape. This is number 9659 for a 38-inch bust. It's a really interesting neckline on this. It's like a reverse sweetheart neckline, and then there's a notch in the center, then there's kind of this angular capped sleeve thing going on, and then you have a gored skirt. Never seen anything quite like that. It's definitely interesting. Someone was either drinking red wine or Gatorade when using this pattern, as you can tell by the ring on there. This is in a size 40 for a 40-inch bust. This is a jumper, dress, and skirt and blouse pattern, if I recall correctly, because I have actually sold a copy of this before. There are 20 pieces in there, and it feels like it might be factory folded, and I really hope it's factory folded so I don't have to count 20 pieces. This one feels factory folded too, though the flap isn't in great shape. This one is in a size 20.5 for a 41-inch bust. It is a partially button-down shirtwaist style dress with a pretty typical looking collar and lapel situation, and then coordinating cuffs on the short sleeve version and fitted cuffs on the bishop sleeve version. Here's a 1940s pattern in a size 42 for a 42-inch bust. I love the sleeves on this. You can make these elbow length kind of super puffy balloon sleeves, or you can make a more classic bishop sleeve, and this is shaped with gathers over the bust. Here's another one that has clearly had some water damage to it, but feels like it could be factory folded. Hopefully it's in okay condition. It sort of depends whether it was in a humid environment, in which case it would get moldy, or whether it was in a dry environment, in which case it might still be okay. But this is in a size 20 for a 38-inch bust. It is a woman and Mrs. robe in 2 lengths, but I honestly feel like you could shorten this and you could wear this as a house dress. It's got really cool angular armholes, and it looks really flattering with the placement placement of the darts, and I would totally wear this out in public. I also love how it's a robe, but she's like modeling it with all this pearl jewelry. I appreciate that greatly. Speaking of fancy jewelry, this is a pattern fit for fanciness if I've ever seen one. This is in a size 20 for a 40-inch bust. It's really beautiful gored dress with a super full skirt, and then it's got this cool drape neckline that actually ties at the back and turns into a train. It's absolutely stunning, and unfortunately this one feels like it's been used and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of tissue in there, so I'm worried that it's going to be incomplete, which would just be such a shame because I would love this to be intact so someone can turn this dress into reality, because it really is just stunning. And I love the vibrant colors they picked for the illustration too. This pattern is a size 20.5 from the 1960s. It's for a 41-inch bust. Feels like it could be factory folded. Pretty simple boxy-ish cut princess seam dress. It actually has darts extending from the princess seam, which I've never seen before, and then it ties it at the waist. Another 1960s pattern that feels like it could be factory folded. This one is in a size 12, which we haven't really seen in this lot before, for a 32-inch bust. It feels like it could be factory folded, and it's a asymmetrical style with a pleat. It's really quite cute, but also very, very simple. This is a later 50s design. You have a fitted or a flared option. It has buttons down the front and really interesting tab details around the yoke, as well as a slash at the center front and a cute little collar. And that is number 4520 and a size 20 for a 40-inch bust, and it feels factory folded. This is another really cute one. I love this design. It's number 4433 and a size 20 for a 40-inch bust. It's got a flared skirt. Looks like it's made out of circle skirts, so you get that really smooth line over the hips. And you've got this wonderful pleated, almost off the shoulder collar, which I think is such a flattering design. It really like shows a lot at the chest, but you're still very covered, so it looks quite modest. And I feel like it's just incredibly flattering and really helps balance out the full skirts. It's one of the reasons I love 1860s fashion so much, and the Bertha collars you'll see there. So it's nice seeing something sort of reminiscent of that in the 1950s. This pattern feels like it has been used and loved and is probably incomplete because there doesn't seem to be much tissue in there at all, which is a shame. It's a drop waist, basque waist dress design with a seam down the front. It's fitted with 5 or 6 darts in the bodice, which is a lot, and appears to have dolman or kimono sleeves, which are just when the sleeves are cut and one with the bodice. Here's another drop waist design. This was more of a dramatic cut from the 50s, and this has a little cap sleeves. It has a circular skirt that starts kind of in the middle point of the hip, and it looks like you have optional sashes as well. This is one of those things that would be terribly unflattering on me, but would look absolutely wonderful on someone else. And this is in a size 20 for a 38-inch bust. Here's a cute little cocktail dress with scallop details or a V-neck. It's actually interesting at a second glance the way this is made. It's not gathered. Instead, there are 3 darts on each side that shape it over the hips to get a little bit more specific of a silhouette. And then the front piece looks like it's cut in one with the bodice and is box pleated. So it's a little bit more interesting than I originally gave it credit for. I do love the illustration, how they've created the effect of texture on the dresses. This feels factory folded, and it's in a size 40 for a 42-inch bust. This is such a cute summer dress design. It's described as being a woman's and Mrs. dress with slimmer full skirt and cape. It is an easy to sew design, and it's a size 20 for a 40-inch bust and feels factory folded. This is a pattern for the 1950s, and it's quite neat because it's sort of reminiscent to the 1940s patterns we saw earlier. I do feel like these all had the same previous owner. This one feels factory folded, and it's in a size 20 for a 38-inch bust. Here's another pattern that feels factory folded in a size 20 for a 40-inch bust. And again, you can make this with a slim or a full skirt, and it's got cute little cap sleeves and darts to fit it through the bust. This pattern I might keep for myself. I don't usually keep a lot of wiggle dresses, but there's something about the princess seams on this one and the little collar that makes it look so flattering and fun. I just love the vibrancy of the illustrations. This is number 3461, and it's in a size 20 for a 38-inch bust, and it feels factory folded. But this one probably isn't going to make it to the shop. As I said, I think it's going to go straight into my personal collection. I think part of the reason I'm gravitating towards it is just because it has so many seams in the bust, or rather through the waist, that I feel like you get a really good fit, even if you have relatively large hips like I do. It also has a center front seam, so I feel like I could get it to fit really nicely over my stomach too, which should make it more flattering. So I want to give this one a try, and I want to keep it for myself. Here's one that feels factory folded. This is kind of similar to one we saw before, except instead of buttoning all the way down the front, it must have some sort of side zip closure. It's got these really pretty cap sleeves. It's got this interesting scallop pocket detail at the front, and then it's got that lap over tab detail at the front as well. And this is number 9782 in a size 20 for a 38-inch bust. Here's a 1960s suit pattern in a size 20.5 for a 41-inch bust. This is again just a tailored suit pattern with a fitted skirt. There's a cute little summer dress pattern that also comes with a bolero or jacket that has dolman sleeves. This is lightly flared with a straight neckline and thin strap, and then it has an optional little collar as well. This one, however, does not feel factory folded. It feels like there's barely any tissue in here at all, which is especially odd because this is a proportioned dress, which means it comes in a short, tall, and standard size, which means you have 3 different bodice patterns and 3 different lengths. So if anything, this should feel exceptionally full, not basically empty. So I have a feeling this one is going to end up in the giveaway pile, which is a shame because it's actually really quite cute. This is a vampy looking design. My goodness, you've got this, I don't even know what to call that neckline. Again, I guess it's like an opposite sweetheart neckline, and it's got a gathered fitted skirt, and then you have a little jacket to go over top of it. I've never seen anything quite like that before. It's in a size 16, and it does feel like there's tissue in there, but it definitely feels like it's been cut, it's been used, and not folded particularly well. This is a size 20 pattern for a 38-inch bust. This is a jumper dress and blouse pattern. I might keep this one for myself too. I feel like this is really, really cute. But then again, it definitely closes with the side zip, and we've already established how much I hate side zips. But it's really just darling. It's got a relatively low sweetheart neckline, it's got buttons to the waist, and then it probably includes a pattern to make a matching belt, and then just has a really nice lightly flared skirt and a relatively high cut neckline in the back. You can make the blouse with short or long sleeves. And I was gonna say it's factory folded, or it feels factory folded, but it is actually cut in there, which makes me more inclined to keep it because that means it's less valuable. This is a size 20.5 suit pattern. This time around it is for a jacket, and it's also for a dress that has a sweetheart neckline and short sleeves and a relatively fitted skirt. This pattern feels thick. I don't know if you can see this, but it is like a full ½ inch thick, and typically patterns are, I don't know, like half that thickness. There's a big difference there. This is like a normal size pattern, and this one just feels huge by comparison. And this is a missus and woman's suit or coat with optional purchased fur collar, which is a very specific description. So you can make this princess themed coat with a shawl collar or a fur collar, and I'm assuming it also includes the skirt pattern they show there. And that is in a size 42 for a 44-inch bust. This one is in a size 20 to 22.5 for busts 41 to 43 inches, which means it might be cut for multiple sizes, which I didn't think you were seeing in the 60s, but I could be wrong. And this, you have a lightly flared skirt pattern, or you have a more densely gathered skirt pattern. This is labeled as being a McCalls Adjust For You pattern, so maybe this was just when they were starting to print multiple sizes per a pattern. If you're unfamiliar with vintage patterns, they typically only came in a single size. So this one is in a size 20 for a 38-inch bust, and that is the only size of pattern you get in here. You don't get a range of sizes and then cut it down to your specific size the way you do with modern patterns. And the reason for that is because this stems from when tissue patterns didn't have any printing on the tissue at all and were instead pre-cut to the right dimensions. When that's the case, you obviously couldn't have multiple sizes in a single envelope because you wouldn't be able to tell which pieces were for which size. Eventually they switched to printing instructions onto the pieces, but they were still pre-cut to their specific size. It wasn't until the 40s, I think, that patterns started coming on a single sheet with the outline for the individual pieces marked on that sheet, and you had to cut them out yourself. And then it wasn't until the 70s, I think, or perhaps the late 60s, going off of this, that they started including multiple sizes of patterns per envelope. And you probably already know that if you're this deep into this video. Anyway, this is a half-size dress and jacket from the 1960s and a size 20.5 for a 41-inch bust. I might keep this pattern for myself too. It's very, very simple, but it's just quite cute. I like the lightly flared skirt cut on the bias, and I like the pleated fitted skirt. This shaped with darts below and alongside the bodice. Then you've got a relatively large lapel. This is an interesting McCalls design. You've got a scoop neck, but it does also have a collar or lapel, and then a lightly flared knee-length skirt. That one feels like it could be factory folded, and it's in a size 40 for a 42-inch bust. This pattern sadly feels like it's missing tissue, which is such a shame because, again, it's a really, really cool design. I don't see any instructions in there either. This one is a size 42 for a 42-inch bust. It's got drape details along one hip. It's shaped with tucks underneath the bust and has elbow or full-length sleeves. And then lastly, we have McCalls 6601 in a size 42 for a 42-inch bust. This is a pattern that I have purchased 2 times before and sold 2 times before, so I'm happy to list another one in my shop. This envelope has seen better days, but the pattern feels like it is nicely folded and in good shape. This pattern is quite neat because it has shirring over the shoulder. It's got a relatively fitted skirt that has draped panels at one side, and it actually has draped panels at one side of the bodice too, so it goes all the way down the dress, and you can make this with short or elbow-length sleeves. So that is it. Now I'm going to sort these by size in the order that I will count and photograph and ultimately list them in. And I'll show you what the size breakdown is when I get them sorted that way, and then I will get right to work getting these counted and listed for all of you. Okay, so everything is now organized. Up here we have two patterns that are marked as being a size 42, but they are made for bust measurements of 44 inches, which is kind of interesting given that these are basically 2 decades apart. I'm not sure why a 1940s pattern was listed that way, but it is. So those appear to be the same size despite their decade difference. This one is a 20.5 to 22.5, so it's a bit unique. Then there's one size 16. There are two size 12s that feel incomplete, so I'm just going to throw these in my freebies pile. I'm not even going to bother to count them, especially because they are such a common size. There are 6 size 20.5 patterns for a 41-inch bust. There's one size 40 pattern for a 40-inch bust. There are 2 size 40 patterns for 42-inch busts. And then there are 5 size 20 patterns for a 40-inch bust. So I'm probably going to put these in the same pile because they'll have the same measurements. This one's just marked as a 40, whereas the other one is marked as a 20. And then the bulk of these, 17 in total, are size 20 for a 38-inch bust. So I'm going to get these all sorted into a container, and then I can get to counting them, which I am so looking forward to because I want to get these listed right away. Wait, there's one pile that I think I forgot to mention. There are 8 patterns in this pile, and these are all size 42 for a 42-inch bust, and I believe these are all for the 1940s.